I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step. Just let go. Today, we are going to dissect a concept that I constantly bring up and mention often on the podcast, and that is where purpose, passion, and skill collide, bliss, and impact resides. So what does that mean, and how do we get to that intersection? That's what we're going to talk about today. That's what we're going to get into, the details, the literal, the tangible, tactical things that I've learned to help get us to that sweet spot. That purpose, passion, skill collision is where I choose to play and where I choose to live, because it's a pretty good spot, if you ask me. And it's not easy necessarily finding that. It's a discovery process and a very non-linear one for those of us who love a very linear step-by-step guide. This is a little different, but we are going to get into the details, because without doing this, it can seem like an intangible, just kind of floaty concept that doesn't feel attainable. When I share this line, this where purpose, passion, and skill collide, bliss, and impact resides, whether it's on stage speaking, it's on the podcast, it's a one-on-one conversation, maybe it's guiding an entrepreneur, I get this kind of pause from people and their eyes open a little bigger, and they basically say in so many words, I want that. I want to live in that intersection. And then usually I see a little bit of confusion of how do I get there? We tackle the most taboo topics on the Why Not Now show. Oftentimes, you're hearing guests share things they've never shared before. In the spirit of things we don't typically talk about, you should know that the Why Not Now show is supported by Poopery, the original before you go toilet spray. It's magic. My friends at Poopery have literally taken the smell out of you-know-what. This pure blend of essential oils stops bathroom odor before it begins. Visit poopery.com, and Why Not Now listeners get 20% off with code WHYNOTNOW. That's all one word. And you can hear the story about Poopery in our interview with founder Susie Batiste. That's Why Not Now episode 28. Poopery is also available at Target. Well, this is life work. Being able to bring those three big concepts on their own together into one and finding where they overlap is not necessarily an overnight thing. People spend many years doing this and navigating where that intersection resides. And I know for me, it's a moving target because our passions shift, our skills evolve and change, and our purpose even can shift. It's probably the least of the three that's likely to change a lot, but it happens. And so if A, it's a little tricky to even find this intersection, and then B, it's moving at times, then clearly this is not an easy feat per se. And what I mean by this being a nonlinear process is that if we think back to our education, our formal education, grade school, middle school, high school, and then eventually college, graduate programs, if that has been your route, that's a pretty linear process, specifically focused on skill, education, knowledge. And where purpose, passion, and skill collide for you is not likely to just show up in a job description somewhere or be a profession necessarily. It could be, but most of the cases that I've seen have been situations where an individual has to create that intersection, whether that means evolving and adapting an actual job, a job description, a career, and making some tweaks to it so they're able to inject more purpose and maybe more passion and maybe different types of skills. Or potentially this is a completely different scenario where you are creating an environment and situation and a livelihood where you make money off of this in this intersection. And maybe it doesn't even exist yet. In many cases, it probably doesn't. So being open to this process, being potentially a little curvy and messy and taking a little bit of a windy road is key. Okay, so where do we start with this process? Here are a couple of tips and things you can do today to start navigating and just inching closer toward that intersection. So number one, let's look at your current scenario. If you were to take a piece of paper and draw a Venn diagram, which basically that's just 3 big circles that overlap in the middle and have some area of overlapping. And if you can just Google Venn diagram, if you're not familiar, VENN diagram template, Google image that and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. So if we have your current situation and you start to do an audit, okay, am I using my skills? And which ones are they? And are there other skills that I want to be using? Purpose. Do I feel a sense of fulfillment in my day when I'm doing my current job, career, working on my business? And then passion. Does it light me up? Literally, am I excited to be doing what I'm doing? Also, another indicator of passion can be, do you lose sense of time? Do you kind of feel that what's called flow to many people, where you're enjoying yourself so much or you're so deep into your work that you forget what time it is? Maybe you forget to eat. Those types of scenarios, that's a good indication that you're doing something that you're passionate about. So we're just starting with your current scenario and doing a quick audit, evaluation. Where is the biggest deficit? Maybe you are not feeling a ton of passion. Maybe a little bit of purpose, and you're using your skills, at least the ones that are top of mind that you have. First, in order to make a fairly easy, sometimes the lowest hanging fruit type of change, are there things you could do right now to inject a little bit more? Could you talk to your boss about maybe finding a way to inject more of a skill that you want to start using into your day, into your responsibilities? Start to just kind of think there. And this is a very first step, because if you can have an interim where you're actually in a spot that you can be a little happier or a lot happier with your current scenario, it buys you time to work on a completely different Venn diagram, a big picture, blue sky thinking Venn diagram where your purpose, passion, and skill collide. And that might be in 180 and it might be an overhaul, but at least you're able to find a little bit more joy and just quality of life in your current scenario. So it gives you time. And the last thing we want to do is rush into finding this intersection and just hop and do a full 180 overnight, because that's a pretty big jolt. And again, this can be life work for people. So let's see what we can do in the interim. The next step you can take to set yourself up for success, before you even create this blue sky, new purpose, passion, skill Venn diagram, is start to look around and see who you're spending your time with. Who are the 5 people that you spend the most time with? Some studies show that we are an average of those 5 people. Whether or not you believe that, clearly we know that they're influencing and impacting us. We're impressionable to a certain extent by these individuals. So you might start to kind of think about expanding your tribe a bit. And the reason for this is the people that love us the most and the people that we surround ourselves with, they are very used to us doing things that appears that we're good at. They're very comfortable and used to us doing things that appear to be safe for us and solid and consistent. So as soon as we start to communicate or show that we might be looking for a little bit of a different intersection and discuss this with them, you may not hear the feedback that you are looking for, and you may not hear the most supportive feedback. And here's why. Most of us are living in what's called your zone of excellence versus your zone of genius. And our zone of excellence is basically living in a place where we are good at what we do. We have become good at it. We've mastered, or maybe we're getting close to mastering what this profession is. And we're known for it. That's what we went to school for. We've invested in this. And so the people around us support that and celebrate that. And they want us to stay in that zone of excellence, because from the outside looking in, that seems to be the best spot for us. Now, the zone of genius, and by the way, this concept was created by Dr. Gay Hendricks, and you can read more about this in The Big Leap, his book. Also, he's been on this podcast, so check out Dr. Gay Hendricks on the Why Not Now show if you'd like. But the zone of genius is like a level up. It transcends what you're excellent at. And it's truly where you are doing what you are meant to be doing on this planet. Sometimes that comes so easy to you that it doesn't even feel like work. It doesn't even look like work. So this is a shift. This is different. And that's where that purpose, passion, and skill, when they are intersecting and overlapping, you are going to be a lot closer to your zone of genius versus your zone of excellence. Your excellence is almost, I would say, it's primarily your skill. When we add these other two, that's when we're elevating. So the reason I suggest that it's helpful to start adding someone or other people, more than one person, into your circle, into your tribe, as I call it, is because they may not have preconceived notions and the history of what you've always done or your path to get to where you are now. And if you can find someone who is also on that path of wanting to level up, increase their quality of life, find more purpose, passion, and skill in what they're doing, then you'll have that support. You will have a feedback loop and conversation that might sound a lot different than your immediate friends and family that you've known forever, that you went to high school with, or maybe college. So that's one thing that you can do to also set yourself up for success. These are like-minded, like-hearted people who are either already living in that intersection or they're on the journey too and on that quest of making some changes and getting brave to start navigating some new territory. So then the question is, how do I find these new people, right? We will get to that. So just bookmark that for a moment, and I will definitely talk through some ways that you might find them. Okay, so let's say you have your fresh, brand new purpose, passion, skill Venn diagram, and it is blank. and you are on a mission to find this intersection. Let's break it down with each circle. So there's the purpose circle, the passion circle, the skill circle. Let's start kind of in the lowest. This is, in my opinion, probably the easiest to identify, skill, because it's something that we've probably heard feedback on. We know about ourselves, and if not, it's pretty easy to find if you don't. So the first thing I'd like for you to do is start putting into that first circle, writing down all the skills that come to mind. And this is not to be overthought, overcooked. This is not to be wordsmithed. This is just as quickly as you can, just start writing words into that circle. These are both hard skills and soft skills. And what I mean by that is a hard skill could be something you went to school for, let's say engineering or marketing, branding, whatever it may be, accounting. Soft skills might be more people skills or things that feel a little less tangible, but you know you have them. You know you're good with people and moderating situations. Maybe you know you're really good at times of urgency and emergency situations. Start writing down all the things you know you're good at. And these could even be if you look at kind of your emotional intelligence, what do you know that you just tend to find easy that maybe other people don't? And if you're having a hard time with this, one of the easiest things you can do is ask your friends and family. Ask them for feedback. What am I good at? What are some of my skills in your opinion? And just start jotting all of these down. And be open, because we definitely have skills that are outside of the obvious that maybe we have educated ourselves on. And thinking throughout your day, things that you're doing that you just find easy, that not everybody maybe finds so easy. And this process doesn't need to happen in one sitting, but definitely start with one sitting and just jot down everything you can. And then as you navigate your day, start adding to that circle. Okay, let's move on to the passion circle. Again, just start writing down the first things that come to mind that you are passionate about, that light you up, that get you excited. Sometimes it's easy to think about your hobbies first. Usually that's a pretty obvious one. And things that you notice throughout your day that you just find more energy toward. Maybe it's even getting really curious and listening to the inflection in your voice. You might notice if you start talking about something or sharing a story, you have more energy, your inflection changes. That's probably something you're passionate about. So passion is such a big word, and I've had a couple of conversations recently where people have said to me, I don't even know what I'm passionate about. Maybe they are so busy and caught up with other responsibilities and things that they need to do and people they need to serve, like at their jobs or their family, that they just don't feel like they have enough time for themselves to even think about what gets them excited. Okay, so number one, we do have to carve out a little bit of time to get back in touch and start to meet ourselves again and learn, what am I passionate about? I've been in these situations before where I'm going to kind of audit my passions and I go blank and I just think, wow, I've just been working, and is that my passion? And yes, absolutely it can be. But what is it about the work? That's what we want to get down to. The more specific we can be with this entire exercise, the better. And getting curious. So if you are finding you're coming up blank with the passion side of things, I have some suggestions for you, which we will get to. But we also want to be open-minded. So let's say horseback riding is a passion, but also reading biographies is a passion. the spectrum is so wide and diverse that we don't want to limit ourselves and just kind of get in a zone of just the hobbies from the past or something. And real quick, I'm going to touch back on the skill circle for a minute. If there's a skill that you've always wanted to have, but you don't feel that you really embody that yet, put it just outside of the circle in kind of the white space, but definitely write it down because most skills we can learn. And it's something that you want to keep on your radar for sure. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment and it means a ton to us. Also, after recording more than 100 episodes, I've created a bit of a cheat sheet on the top 5 things I've learned from renegades and how they get from idea to action, from dreaming to doing. I will email you the downloadable PDF when you subscribe to my newsletter. Just head to amyjomartin.com and click on Connect with Me. Okay, so back to the passion. Let's say you're just kind of coming up blank. You put a few things down in this circle and now you're like, okay, I don't know what else to put. Here's my challenge for you. Here's what you can do. Commit to start dating passions for the next month, the next 6 weeks, the next 6 months, whatever frame of time that makes sense for you, make a commitment and literally start dating. Be open to everything, attached to nothing, and get curious. How fun is that? If you know that this is a step that will bring you closer to living in this intersection, then why not? And it's fun. I mean, to give yourself permission to play, to explore, and be in this discovery phase is a huge gift. So do it. So what do I mean by dating? Start dating passions. What I mean is thinking about things that you've always been curious about. Trying to go to one workshop, one meetup that people are maybe talking about a certain topic. Reading a book that you typically wouldn't read about something that you're curious about. And if you start with kind of replacing the word passion with curiosity, don't put so much pressure on this dating that you feel like you just need to nail it and find the one right away. Let's first just dabble and get curious and see where that takes us. Also, paying attention to what lights you up in your day or what captures your attention throughout your day. That is a huge indicator of what might be something that you want to dive into a little bit more and get more curious about. Let's say you just happen to overhear a conversation of people talking about something that you actually want to learn more about or that sparks a thought. Maybe you hear a news report or read an article that you happen to trip upon or see a headline. And typically you wouldn't spend the time to go read the article after just reading the headline. But something in you is just saying, no, let's just read this. It could be a complete 180 of what you typically would do or something that might seem like it has no relevance or connection and thread to your life. Still, explore it and just start dating. Just start dating. What's the worst thing that can happen if you decide to go to some local workshop or go to a co-working spot one evening to listen to a speaker on a topic that you may or may not be very interested in? This is one of those places where you might find a new person that could be in your tribe that's like-minded, like-hearted. So the ROI of going to some talk or maybe there's an author in town that's reading an excerpt of their book. If you go and meet someone, that's amazing ROI. And what's interesting is I think this is where I call them morsels. You can start to kind of follow these little nuggets, these little indicators, morsels, and they lead you to another place or another place. And again, non-linear process is what we want to remember about this. As an example, there was a time when I literally could not list a passion because I had just come out of this season of working so hard and being so narrow focused and minded that I started listening to a variety of different podcasts that I typically wouldn't have listened to. And I listened to an episode that started talking about serotonin. Well, that sparked some curiosity. I started doing more research on this and getting into it. And eventually that led me to doing a clinical research study, which I am not a scientist or a doctor, but I found someone to do this with me. And it brought so much joy and so much fulfillment to do this research study. And if you want more context into the situation, you can go back and listen to episode 100 when I was at the beginning stages and phases of trying to figure out a different intersection to live in because mine felt like a dead end. All right, so now the purpose circle. So this is a biggie. This one, what I've learned is that the purpose circle is what will carry you through and make this a sustainable intersection to live in and enjoy. When maybe your passions ebb and flow, there are times when we just aren't as excited about something as we were before, but it comes back. And then also our skills change and evolve. There are times when we're more confident in certain skills than others. There are times where we're adding new skills, hopefully every day. So that's changing. But the purpose, in my experience, has been what carries you through those deficits and through those droughts of passion and skill kind of going up and down. And it really allows for you to kind of sustain and also not burn out. If you're wondering where the heck I got this formula and this little catchy saying that might sound fluffy from the outside, but actually is legit, it is because I went through a huge purpose deficit, and I called it my purpose problem. I had a purpose problem, literally. Didn't know why I was doing what I was doing, but I was doing it 100 miles an hour and running off that adrenaline. And so the passion was there. The skill was definitely there. That external feedback loop and recognition was feeding my ego, really. And the purpose was so depleted that I eventually just ran out of gas, literally. And I hope that other people can avoid that, getting to that point. But that's when I started to realize, oh, we need another ingredient in this formula because I can't just run off that adrenaline. And the purpose and the passion and the skill together, it's kind of like if in marketing, they taught us something called the media multiplier effect. And that is when you take a billboard and a TV spot and social media marketing and you add them together, they are greater when working together at the same time than if you just had them individually, right? Similar to these three things, they just amplify each other. As I guide female entrepreneurs through this process all the time through the programs that I have, what I've learned is that a lot of times our tendency is to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. Think that we need to completely turn our backs to what we've done in the past for something new. I invite you to actually think differently about that. In some cases, yes, I do think that's what you need for some fresh eyes, some fresh experience. But there are ways to make some slight shifts and shifts in your trajectory. Maybe it's just a couple of degrees that change your entire experience. So you may not be as far from this intersection as you think. And it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so back to this purpose circle, the big one, right? We find purpose as human beings in so many different things. And I think this is kind of the big hypothetical or question of, how do you find purpose? There's no right or wrong, of course, but ways to identify what this could be. And many of us, our families give us purpose, our kids, and that's a great place to start, for sure. From a livelihood standpoint and career and work and finding that intersection that will generate revenue, one of the questions you can ask yourself is, what do I get fired up about, just emotionally charged up about when I hear it reported in the news or someone starts a conversation? Something that you feel such a sense of strong will about, and maybe this is a current issue. Maybe there's something, current events, that you just feel almost like physiologically I use the word fired up because I guess that's the first thing that's coming to mind, but you feel more intense about. It could be a social issue. It could be something around, let's say, animals. It could be, for me, it's female entrepreneurs and giving women equal opportunity when it comes to career and impact. That's something that I can talk about all day, every day. I will read articles, I will listen to conversation, and I literally get physiologically different cues that this is a purposeful topic for me, meaning goosebumps or my heart starts racing. So my challenge for you is to start paying attention to what just gets you going. And you feel so strongly about this that you feel kind of some intense emotions. That's one way to identify that purpose, that fulfillment. So how does this all come together, right? So that's the big question. That's the life work. When we start to become more aware of each of these circles of our passions, our skills, our purpose, you will be amazed at what starts to happen, because just naturally we're going to gravitate toward finding ways of bringing that into our day more. And I definitely don't advise just sitting down and trying to crush these 3 circles together. It needs time to breathe. You need time to think about this, let it marinate. And again, kind of embracing that nonlinear process, start to lean into ways that these might start to meet up or match up. As you are dating these passions, I strongly recommend you journal or write down. You can just even use something like Evernote. Type in your thoughts, what's happening, your experiences, what you took away from going on a date, something that you learned you absolutely don't want, or something that you learned you absolutely do want. That process of sharing your ideas beyond your head and beyond your mind onto a piece of paper or onto your laptop is really important, because when we start to transfer that knowledge, those emotions, they just become more real and tangible and accessible to us. So that is key. And also talking to other people about it that you feel will not judge you or try to keep you from expanding and evolving and limit you into your zone of excellence. Here's an example of a literal way that this can all start to take shape and come together. And it's my own personal experience. So I'm going to share this just as a sample. There's no right or wrong way to go about this. But as I mentioned, I experienced this major purpose problem. And I thought I needed to do a complete 180 with my approach and really kind of turn my back to everything I had built and done, because I thought it was all just a lack of purpose and I didn't want to go there. So in a way, I was kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I knew that my passion in the past was technology, innovation, working with other humans and helping them express their essence. And doing what hasn't been done before. Marketing is actually, and branding is a passion, not only a skill, and in social communication. So that to me was definitely in that passion circle. In the skill were a lot of the things that I had gained over the course of my career. The business skills, the marketing, the relationship building. And so I had these kind of obvious two circles. The purpose was at such a deficit. And what I found was, after reflection now of several years, I thought I had to create 3 new circles. Just because the purpose was missing in that scenario doesn't mean that it couldn't be filled in and actually create a very fulfilling, impactful intersection. Part of the reason why the purpose was missing was because I was working with really large corporate brands and entities and individuals that maybe didn't share the same vision and weren't necessarily in alignment from a culture standpoint. Well, what happened was eventually I realized if I just replace that and fill that purpose circle with an audience and a recipient that I feel actually lights me up and fulfills me, like female entrepreneurs, for example, then all of a sudden I'm able to live in that intersection again. So it was just one of those circles that I had to shift and get more creative and open-minded about that allowed me to snap right back into that intersection and living where my passion, purpose, and skill collided. I think sometimes it's helpful to not try and reinvent the wheel necessarily, but think about the shifts that we can make. And that made the biggest difference. In theory, I'm still doing a lot of what I used to do, but it's with a new audience that brings me so much more purpose. That, to me, is a much more efficient way to go about this, because it could take 10 years, which I'm not saying don't do it if you feel like that's what you want to do, but to gain the skills to be able to live and perform at a level that you want to be at, if you completely reinvent the wheel. And you definitely can do that. I'm not trying to deter you. But in the interim, maybe there's some tweaks you can make to your current intersection to buy you that time and sustain some joy as you build toward the new Venn diagram. If you are a budding entrepreneur or an entrepreneur that maybe wants to pivot, here's another little tip that I've learned. If we look at someone like Tony Hsieh, the CEO of Zappos, who has been on this show as well, you can listen to this episode. I remember having a conversation with him about this once, and Zappos started by selling shoes online as an online retailer for shoes. Tony does not have a passion for shoes. He has a passion for delivering happiness through that customer experience and with his own employees and his company culture. So it's important to not get so caught up and over literal about our passions having to be our business, because the product itself might be something that you're not overly passionate about, but the way you distribute the product or the audience and the recipient and beneficiary of the product might be where your passion and your purpose and your skills are colliding more. You're finding that purpose and fulfillment more. So try not to get super literal and over literal with what your brand, your product is, or service potentially, because it might be disguised. I would love your feedback and to hear more about your journey in going through this process. I'd love to hear your challenges. I'd love to hear your tips and tricks, things that you're discovering. Feel free to reach out to me on social media. Instagram is at Amy Jo Martin. So is Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. And also, this is a great discussion for our private Facebook group. Just head into Facebook and search Why Not Now private group, and we will let you in to join the conversation, because this is the type of conversation that we have in there. As fluffy as it might sound to some ears on the first pass, trust me that striving and getting curious about where this intersection is for you is worth it. I can say it's my top priority, and it's one of those things that, thank goodness, that I've put the time and effort into, because I do feel lit up every day in what I do, and it feels more like play than work. Of course, there are days where it's a little bit of work, right? It's tough. But the majority of the time, from percentages game, it does feel like play, and it almost feels like cheating or too easy. That's when you know you're living in your zone of genius. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?